Well, good morning, everybody. And it's a little rainy out there. It's Friday. I was hoping to do something outside, but left indoors. It was just a little too risky to take my gear out in case another one of these storms blew up. But welcome to Friday morning. I have one more Friday to go. Next week is our last day in the commercial program on Thursday, so Friday next week will be my last Friday morning, and then we'll revisit that schedule. But I hope you're all doing well, and I appreciate you tuning in this morning. Today we're going to be talking about some zoning issues, and they can become issues for you. They're just topics. But I did a presentation yesterday morning with the home builders in Harrisburg, and since it's all fresh on my mind, and I've discovered some new resources that I thought might be helpful to you all, here we are. So current topic for me, zoning. This is something that we deal with all year long on every property, whether you know it or not. And that's why I bring it to your attention. There might be some advantages to knowing something more about the zoning. Maybe you've got a property that you just aren't sure how to market. And there's some resources out there that I think could be fun and helpful to you. So we'll take a look at all of those today. As I figure out where they are. So let's take a look at zoning. So zoning comes into our mind largely when we're thinking of listing maybe a subdivision or a piece of land that can be subdivided. But did you ever consider even that building lot that you'd like to sell that's right down the street? It's an infill lot, some scattered lot out in the country, and you think, you know, hey, we got the get out of jail free card, it's already created. Well, let's take a look at some topics or some areas that you might want to consider before you go and sell it or list it, or along the way that you bring it to the owner's attention, the buyer's attention, and you coach them through these different points. Keeps everybody from getting surprises, overpaying, or underselling something that they have. So let's take a look at it. What could some of those issues look like? So it's just a single lot. It's not a complicated subdivision plan. It's just a single lot. Like yesterday we discussed, it was divided in the 50s. Back in the 50s, you drew a square on a piece of paper, and that was a subdivision. Somebody looked it over, recorded it, and there you go. Today, let's look at, maybe what some of those topics or concerns could be. First, what are they going to be? Well, can you lift the building permit on the lot? Seems like kind of a no-brainer. It's an approved lot. It's sitting there. It's an acre. Maybe it's a half acre. Well, why wouldn't they issue a building permit? Well, maybe it's a weird shape. Maybe there's not an access to it. Can you actually physically create a driveway to this lot? Now, this is going to vary depending on where it's located. If you're located along a major route, Route 743, 72, pick one. They're going to be limited access, and there's different criteria because now you're dealing with PennDOT directly, and that could be fun. That can be a challenge. So you want to make sure that you can create a driveway. There's probably a little lane that comes in and out, and they've used it for years, and they come out and they do picnics and parties, or they come out and collect firewood once a year, or they've never visited the lot, never entered it. Do you have an access, and what's that access going to look like, and is it an access that's going to allow a building permit to be issued? It's going to be one of the first questions they ask. So that permit, if you're dealing with a local municipality, well, you're dealing with their planning director or their zoning officer would be the place for you to start. If you're along any kind of a state route, now you default to PennDOT. PennDOT has a little more, they're very similar, the local officials versus PennDOT. They have a very set of rules. But today, there's a liability to approving a driveway. If you pull out and you have limited visibility and you get in an accident, or one of your guests gets in an accident, the township or the state has a liability because they approved a driveway and the assumption is that it's safe. So they're starting to really scrutinize this, and this is nothing new. This is going on the last probably 15 years, maybe more. But lifting these permits for individual lots is not a no-brainer. And there's a lot of variables. So what's the answer in zoning and many of these things? Well, it depends. It depends on the situation. So what we're looking for here is minimum sight distance. Basically, you're in your car, you're ready to pull out onto the road, you look to the right, you look to the left. Do you have adequate visibility to see oncoming traffic that you can pull out safely, without, well, there's nothing coming, gun it and let's go. We know there's plenty of driveways out there like that, but you're not going to create new ones like that. The contour of the road, the turning, trees, the road bank, anything is going to impact that sight distance, and that's going to come into play when PennDOT or your local official comes out to approve your driveway access. That's one of our first points, guys, but it's incredibly critical. If I can't get a driveway permit or one that suits me, I may not want this lot at all. And I can take you around and show you lots of situations, the one we discussed yesterday, and I think these guys are probably one of the more adventurous groups in creating driveways these days and kind of creative, is Sheetz. If you go see any Sheetz anywhere, there's probably at least one entrance to that station that is kind of a new hybrid intersection. We know they like traffic lights. But what about that access right off of 11 and 15 that rolls right into Sheetz? It's one way in, it's one way out. You're turning right to come in, you're turning right when you leave. You're not crossing the road, you're not able to make a left. Now you can loop around and then pick up the traffic light and go north or south, but coming out onto 11 and 15, you're going one way. That's at 11 and 15, that's a divided road, and you can probably come up with lots of ideas why that might not be the best example. Okay, so let's go to Colonial Park. You got Linglestown Road. They built a Sheetz. The engineer I met with yesterday that we were jointly doing a presentation on zoning and subdivision. Sheetz, he said, has every permit, variable variance that you can imagine on that particular parcel. So you're going to find a one-way in, one-way out situation. Distance to the traffic signal was part of that, but again, visibility was part of it. There's a lot of factors come into play. So do yourself, and let's not assume that, oh, you'll get a driveway permit. There's a lane right here. We've always used it. Doesn't mean anything to the township. It's a starting point when you go to lift your permit. Is there water to the site? Is there public water? Or will you require a well? If you're drilling a well and you're on a small lot, third acre, half acre, you've got neighbors that are close, do they have septic systems? Where's their well located? Because you've got an isolation distance between wells. Maybe the depth of the well is an issue. Local well drillers would know the characteristics of an area when you're about to drill. And, it's a real crapshoot because you're just drilling a hole in the ground. But they have a sense of the topography of the area, and that gets to be kind of consistent on a limited basis. But, is there water available? Maybe there's public water right in the street. Do you have a tap to this property? What's the cost of tapping into the water? You're going to have the same issue with sewer. So we'll just bring that up. So is there sewer to the property? Is there public sewer in the street? Is there a tap to the property? Now with water, there's typically plenty of water supply. It's not a great big deal. And most water today is a private utility, so they're going to say yes, they're going to give you a water supply, and off you go. Sewer is a much touchier issue, and so is there sewer in the neighborhood? Great, you have sewer in the street. Is there a tap into this property, a lateral? Maybe yes, maybe no. So we'll just assume that there is. there sewer capacity for me to build a home? Typically, if you've got sewer in the street and a lateral to your property, there is a reserved capacity for your home to be built there. However, you need to make that phone call. Over the last many years, you'll see that a lot of sewage treatment plants are being rebuilt. That's because of the impact that our wastewater has on Chesapeake Bay. And what that did to us locally was effectively reduce the capacity at many of the sewage treatment facilities. So where you may have had a lateral and may have thought you had capacity, well, that capacity might not be available right now. And they might tell you, yeah, you're going to get it, but you'll get it when we complete our expansion, and that's a couple of years off. So there's no given on any of these things. You just need to follow through and make the calls. So there's sewer in the street, but there's no lateral to your property. Okay, so we're going to make a phone call first. Is there capacity? Yes, there is. Great. What are the tap fees? I'd like to add a lateral to my lot. They'll quote those to you. Great. Next issue you can run into, can you actually cut into the street? Depending on when that street was last paved, there could be a moratorium for a couple of years, typically it's 5, that they don't want you cutting into the street to create a new lateral and butchering up their new paving job. So again, if you see fresh or current paving in front of the property, is there capacity? What are the lateral fees? Am I able to install a lateral now, or must I wait? It's not going to come up that often, but when it does, wouldn't you like to know that I'm selling this lot, or I have this lot available, but can't access sewer for the next 2 years? And you can share that with the owner, you can share that with the buyer. The buyer really ought to know, because it's going to reflect in the price. I'd still like it, I'm willing to buy it, but since I have to wait, I'm paying you $10,000 less. Something like that. So it pays to ask the question. Is it there? Is there capacity? Is there a lateral? What are the fees? And am I able to tap into it? Is stormwater required? Remember, we created this lot years ago. One thing that you're going to find, those lots that were created back in the 50s probably didn't have any perk testing done. So we'll go back to sewer. So was it perked? Is there a current perking permit on this site? What are the results? What system is it going to require? Do I still have isolation distances for installing sewer, installing a well, and not impacting the neighbors? Now, your local municipality will have a lot of these records. They won't have them all. Again, this neighborhood was created in the 50s and 60s. So in order to lift your permit, you may end up doing some survey work and some questioning of the neighbors, not you, but your engineer, to locate all these things so you can't create a system that negatively impacts a neighbor's well. And so all this information shows up on many development plans, but they're not on the plans. These are current plans, probably 1990 and forward. Anything prior to that gets pretty thin pretty fast. So just make sure that you're asking all the proper questions. Stormwater, it wasn't even thought of in the 50s and 60s. Is it a requirement today? So I want to build it on this lot. I have a driveway permit, well, septic, water, sewer, we've addressed them all. For a lot or a land development plan, what's going to be required? First, is there a plan required? Secondly, is stormwater management required? All great questions. You can do this in 30 minutes at your local planning agency, but make sure that you're asking the proper questions. Stormwater can get very expensive very fast, especially if you have that nice 4-acre lot. It's very long and narrow, and you get to drive in 200 feet and build your house up in the woods. Great. That's an expensive driveway. When you add stormwater management, it can become more expensive. Well, it totally become more expensive. And so it would just be nice to know what are the rules of engagement in order to build on this, because that total cost is what every consumer wants to know. And all we want to do is give them the best answer possible. Finally, can I actually build on this lot? Maybe it's a weird shape, and the setbacks are such that you'd end up with a really weird-looking house because it's a long, narrow lot. You've got large side setbacks for some reason, a great big front setback, and suddenly your building envelope becomes very restricted. So it's going to limit, the zoning is going to limit where the type of building, first the height, the type of building, is it commercial, residential, is it a single home, can you build townhomes? It's going to tell you the limitations as far as setbacks for size. There's a limitation for height. You're also going to have a limitation on the amount of paving, so maybe that long driveway starts to become an issue getting up to your home on that flag-shaped lot, because you're going to have a lot coverage ratio that's important. Again, it's impacting stormwater. So all these things play together. And you might find, well, gee, I bought this 2-acre lot, and because of the small stream off to the side, maybe some wetlands, an encroachment by a neighbor for his septic system, the isolation distance, the amount of house I want to build, all these things will come into play before you even break ground to build this house, and you're just getting your permits. So it's going to dictate the type of the property, where it's located on the lot, the height, the style, not so much style, but 1-story, 2-story, height of the 2nd story. All those things are dictated by your local zoning. Just can't show up and build anything anywhere. In most cases, it doesn't really become an issue, but there's always those crazy variables that show up because you can see we're developing a lot of them, which is why I'm here today. So where do these answers come from? Well, every county has a county planning department or commission. It's a great place to start. This is Pennsylvania. We have a lot of small municipalities. In many cases, the individual municipalities manage all of this themselves. They certainly manage their zoning, but not all. Sometimes the county's involved. Subdivision work, the majority will come under the county planning, but not all. And so you just need to find out. Then you're dealing with your local zoning officer or the local planning commission. Again, not a bad thing. They're the local guys. But just remember, at the county level, those guys are at 8:30 to 4:30. They're available Monday through Friday. You can set up an appointment and get an answer. When you drill down to the local guys, most likely they're not a full-time employee. They might be in Tuesday evening from 5 to 7 Thursday on every 3rd Tuesday of the month. And that's it. And so some of the answers can take a little while to get to. When you start moving forward with the project, because of that limited time frame, you may find limited access and a longer approval time for your project. So just know the local players and know how to reach them and discover their hours. And build a good rapport with them. It's always a nice idea to show up for any of these meetings and to see what's going on. It can be a great source of business. You drop in on a planning commission meeting for the month of May or June, and you'll see some new projects coming by. You say, well, I had no idea Sheets was going to be building on that corner. I had no idea somebody was building a 50-lot subdivision, and they're here reviewing the final plans. This is coming online real soon. You won't see much because they might be doing some survey work, but most of this is done by computer today, so you may see very little evidence on site that anything is occurring. And then finally, actually the starting point is your local zoning ordinance. Do you have access to an ordinance? Do you know how to read one? Have you ever seen one? Do you know the zoning map? That's going to dictate the use and the ability to use that land in every different district. It can be your Bible for doing something locally. But where does it all live? Well, it lives in a lot of places. If you're a paper person, they still publish these zoning ordinances, and they are available through the local zoning department. So they're available through your local Let me just do a little muting here.
To unmute your line, press *6 or #6.
So you may find that it all lives online or it lives in paper form, depends on your style. If you find something online, you certainly want to verify it, that it's the most current, and that can turn into an easy phone call for you. But let me show you a fun resource that I discovered yesterday. I was a co-presenter with Bob Fisher, and Bob is a local engineer in New Cumberland, and discovered he's got a really convenient website. Great one-stop shop for a lot of resources. So if you go to his resource page, you'll find that he's got a lot of tabs for just about anything. And some of it might be a little more in-depth than what you want to get into, but it's a great resource on a lot of days. You want to link into the Dauphin County map so you can do it right from here. But as far as design resources, my favorite link was Land Development Due Diligence Links. And this is just a great directory of cool stuff. So a lot of the engineers are now using Google Earth because they can zip right over to it and they can see issues very quickly, whether it's topography, distance to who knows what. Maybe there's water nearby, they're going to see a river, and it's a quick first glance. But he's tied into aerial photos, mapping of soils, national wetlands inventory, county tax mapping. This is a terrific one because if you want to find anybody, he has a link to all Pennsylvania municipal websites, and it looks just like this. So if you're looking for a township and who do you speak to in that particular area, how cool is this? You have access to everybody very simply. So if I wanted to check in on Derry Township, there's our Derry Township local resource, and I can quickly search and find out who the players are in Derry Township. So a terrific resource. That one is resources, design resource, land development due diligence, and then link to municipal websites. Or you just go to the website and bookmark it, and that's all you need to do for the future. He's actually made it convenient to go right to some of the local ones. So Lancaster County, whether it's tax mapping, conservation district, planning commission, same thing for Dauphin, Cumberland. He's made it super convenient to just dodge right into them. Some of the others that are, you can work it both ways. We're not only looking for bad news, like, oh gosh, what do we have to deal with? What if you have something that's located along a stream? And I don't fish, but many people do. And wouldn't it be cool to know if that stream that you're dealing with is right across the street, a quarter mile from your lot? Is it actually a trout stream? Is it stocked? What's the water quality? Well, Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission takes all these things pretty seriously, and they're going to show you areas that support natural trout production, where they're stocking, what's going on. So it could be a fun little way to market that lot or that home that's near water and say, by the way, you're near a Pennsylvania trout stream. It's stocked monthly. It has a water quality of X, whatever they're going to tell you about it. And you're suddenly talking to a different group of buyer instead of the 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath guy. How about somebody that finds trout fishing like fascinating, and this is something that they could link right to. So there's some great resources built right into this for you. You can check through them, figure it all out for yourself, what's important to you, what you need to know. Septic and sewage disposal fact sheet. Somebody has a question on septic systems. There you go. That's Penn State. So just some terrific resources for you that you might turn into some marketing pieces. But it's always great information if you're trying to sell something and you just want the facts. One of the other things that I wanted to make you aware of, and I was fascinated by this, is the software these guys are using these days in order to develop a site. You may have an owner that's really kicking around the idea of would this work, wouldn't this work, and there's a number of easy ways, but they've come up with a software today where they can render a site, create a 3D walkthrough of a property, and do a lot of maneuvering within the site, moving parking around, moving house projects around, to help somebody that has really limited visibility or imagination in developing a tract. And when you see this operate, this is just an incredibly flexible program, very rich, and it's got to save a lot of time and money on any project these days, because the guys that can master this, it's kind of like Microsoft Publisher for land development. I move the building, all the parking redraws, and it is really very cool. So it's called SiteOps, and personally, if I had somebody that was considering a project, I would certainly want to talk to them and have them talk with a designer that has this available, because it is so dynamic. It'll make adjustments, it'll develop costs. There's got to be a savings involved for a designer for the client. It's going to save time, but of course saving money at the end is the cool part. And they've got plenty of little on-site tips and techniques here of exactly what it will do. But it's going to read the topography of the site. It can make adjustments for you. It's actually just very, very cool. This is my favorite part here. As you located parking, they've located their building, and as they move it within the site, you can see the parking adjust. The angle of the parking adjusts. The count of the parking spaces, the design, so you can move it forward or backwards depending on your desire for parking and requirements. And what you're seeing here is in real time. So instead of somebody sitting down and drawing out 20 sets of this, you're looking at all these different variables, and it's keeping you in compliance for that particular site and district you're trying to build in. So very cool tool, would save your client a lot of money, and just being the guy that knows about it, knows of a local resource, could make the difference in getting hired or not, or ending up with a project that they actually go forward and do. And if it saves a lot of time, that means you get to settlement quicker, so you have a new community to sell, or you have commissions that you're getting paid in a much faster fashion. Here you see they went from commercial space in the front, they're adding singles in the back, and allowing for stormwater area, whatever they might need, rec space, and they're doing it in just no time at all. So the tools are cool out there. The information is at your fingertips. The final note I want to make to you is that you need to know the zoning now more than ever. There's been a change to the standard agreement of sale, and it's asking for the zoning of the property from the zoning ordinance, nowhere else. So you want to know that these things are available for you and take advantage of them. Many people in the past just say, yeah, it's residential, or they look at the tax record and say, yeah, look at that, it's residential, commercial. That refers to the use of the property and the basis they use to determine the taxes. it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the zoning of that property. It could be a residential use in a commercial zone, and it's being taxed and calculated under a residential basis because the home is from the 70s. So you're going to have the wrong zoning, and that could end up with repercussions when someone else double checks it and finds out that I can't use this home for what I wanted. Maybe I can't finance it. So you're going to be forced to start doing a little more due diligence in getting proper zoning for your properties that you're selling, whether it's an open lot or a 60-year-old house. So learn the resources, get to your local community, and know the resource. Most of them live online, so it's not really a great big deal. Maybe the first couple times is a big deal for you because you never did it before, and you've got to find the right button. But once you get there, it's super simple. In the past, you'd be buying an ordinance and a map for each township and municipality out there. It was hard to keep them current. It was expensive because they were $20 to $30 for each one. So you could end up with, just a large expense in keeping paperwork together and keeping it current. So the resources today are online. It's an outstanding way to just keep current and look like a pro. So I hope that's helpful to you. That's my 2 cents on little zoning and flirting with land subdivision, some of the new tools. One of my favorite sayings, if there's not an app, go find a website for it. And so here's a whole collection of websites. They should be simply something that you take advantage of all the time, whether you're marketing a property, doing due diligence, trying to understand it, helping the owners understand what it is they're trying to sell or what a buyer's buying. And again, you can look like a pro at the end of the day. So there you go, folks. Zoning and a little bit of subdivision. Hope that's helpful to you on a rainy day. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in. So look forward to talking to you again. Drop by anytime. Tuesday we'll cover a cool app. Maybe it'll have something to do with zoning. Maybe not. Maybe we'll be back in Hershey Park. But have a great weekend. Get out and sell something. And talk to you next week. Thanks very much.